guys, welcome and ting and ting and ting. And we're going into the series, another one in the series of Who is Romania? And this one is called George Enescu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It could be George Enescu or Enescu. I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's Enescu. But, I don't know who this is. So I'm learning something brand new here. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't gonna babble on too much. Let's YouTube and simmer and see what this gentleman was all about for Romania.
Once upon a time, there was a man who conquered the hearts of not one, but two queens with his music, who was hailed the greatest musical phenomenon since Mozart. Yes, on this episode of Who is Romania, I'm going to tell you about George Enescu, one of the world's finest composers, a genius, the Times described as the soul of Romanian music.
See, now hearing that, I've actually heard that name before. I don't know any of the music, but I've actually heard this name mentioned before because when I was growing up as a kid, we used to listen to classical music on Sundays, you know what I mean? And there's actually a program on the radio with classical music, and I've heard this name before mentioned as they played music that he composed. So yeah, I've heard of him before, I just didn't remember. There's some serious playing there. I know that's not him. That's just the introduction. Okay.
His life story reads like a novel. Prodigy child born in 1881 in the small Romanian village of Liveni, Enescu was the alchemist who turned his country's beautiful raw folk music into exquisite, internationally renowned composition. Romania has long been the home of vibrant Romani folk songs. Imagine it, floating in the air around Enescu's local home, rich, untamed. By the age of 3 at a fair, Enescu had been captivated by the Roma and their songs. A year later, like them, he was playing the violin by ear, and by the age of 5, writing his first musical composition.
Wow.
Enescu was on track to become the youngest student ever admitted to the Vienna Conservatory. Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph was suitably impressed by this precocious talent. But his dream was to conquer France, and it didn't take long to come true. In Paris, one of the world's most prestigious orchestras played his first mature musical composition, Poème Roman, Poema Romana. Achingly beautiful. France went wild. Enescu, age 16, had arrived on the international scene. Back home, Romania was quick to pounce on this national asset, especially their royal family. Poet Queen Elizabeth took him under her wing. He was a regular in her artistic salons, where she cast her eccentric eye across a room chock full of young talent. The First World War saw his stock rise again. The country was savaged by invading armies and typhus, and Enescu's music emerges pitch perfect. English-born Queen Marie noted how he performed to the wounded. She wrote, "He played divinely. It was hardly bearable." Enescu shared his music like medicine. He raised money for the Red Cross from the moment Romania entered the war, touring hospitals with his magical violin. The government wanted to send him to New York to play for his country's cause. But according to Marie, Enescu was too in love to leave Romania. He had his eyes firmly fixed on her entitled, glamorous, married friend, Princess Maruca Cantacuzino. They married in 1937 after a long, passionate love affair. The relationship was never plain sailing, but Maruca proved a phenomenal muse for the man whose music put Romania on the map. His best work he'd begun way back in 1910. Set to a French libretto by Edmund Flegg, Enescu's only opera, Oedipus, didn't have its world premiere until 1936 in Paris, when a 20th century masterpiece had been born. It's subsequently been staged all over the world, including the Royal Opera House in London. It's unique, covering the entirety of Oedipus's life from birth to death.
Gone are the days when people do these grand uh, musical operas and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Now it's just like all electronic and whiny little voices. You know what I mean? I remember on Sundays when we used to listen to that classical radio. You know what I mean? And just sit there, close your eyes, and listen to the violins and all those other instruments. The horns, and uh, they would transport you to somewhere else. You know what I mean? And thanks to people like him who created stuff like this, and even we used to listen to operas on the radio. You know what I mean? So it's quite possible as a kid I listened to some of his stuff too. But I'm so glad that I'm getting to know where people like him is from. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of cool to know because when you're a kid, you're thinking it's like it's coming from one side of Europe. You're not thinking about the whole side. You think of France and you think of Germany and you think of Britain, but you never think of places like Romania and and Moldova and all these smaller countries who contributed stuff to the world. You know what I mean? Who contributed great minds, great music, and great all aspects of life, cultural. So, and I think that is one of the things that got me really interested in places like Romania and stuff like that. Being of African heritage myself and learning all the stuff that Africa has contributed to the world but not getting credit for, then the lesser known places in Europe, they have to be contributing to the rest of the world, even though they have to, or like Africans or even like Caribbean people and stuff like that. When you migrate to a bigger country to pursue something that you want to do, you sort of get to be thought of as somebody from that place. Even on here in the comment section, people talk like I'm from America. You know what I mean? Like I was born here. No, I just live here for now. And there's nothing wrong with living here. There's nothing wrong with going to live. I want to go live in Europe somewhere. In my eyes, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Uh, as long as you keep firm and know where you're from. I'm not trying to push it on anybody. I like to talk about it. I share my experiences. I grew up there, so my childhood is based on there, and your formative years as a child is what you remember, right? And so this is kind of cool learning this now. It's kind of cool. Let's get back to this here.
As far as I'm concerned, this is Enescu at his very best. But of course, that's a matter of musical taste. As far as his best known work goes, that's easier. It's his two Romanian rhapsodies, Rhapsodii Romani. They are the very essence of his homeland put to music. Vivid, fresh, spontaneous, tinglingly good. Those two pieces are in the repertoire of almost every major orchestra, and rightly so. Of course, for the great man himself, they were just a few tunes thrown together without thinking. Tunes that won a standing ovation in Bucharest and New York. His music speaks for itself. Enescu was a composer and a performer playing the violin and the piano. But as well as that, he was also a brilliant teacher and mentor. American-born Yehudi Menuhin, the 20th century's most famous violinist, described Enescu as the most extraordinary human being and the absolute by which he judged all others. Aged just 10, Menuhin never forgot witnessing Enescu playing perfectly from memory a violin sonata he'd just heard Ravel perform. Like the local Roma who inspired him, Enescu didn't bother with sheet music. Towards the end of Enescu's life, Romania's trajectory was a painful one. In old age, he ended up abandoning Soviet-occupied Romania, moving to Paris, where, crippled with back pain, in a room that was just big enough for a bed and a piano, he died in 1955, aged 73. He ended life poor, but his legacy was so rich.
Wow.
Great musical feats that still sound as fresh as a spring day in the Romanian mountains are celebrated at the annual George Enescu Festival. It's one of the biggest classical music competitions in Eastern Europe, and really worth the trip. But if you're stuck in Britain, there's no need to miss out. The Enescu concert series is hugely popular. It's organised by London's Romanian Cultural Institute and the Enescu Society. Let the band play on.
Wow. It seems like that's a common theme too. A lot of these people died poor and just petering off, you know. After all the contribution, you'd think, you know, somebody would be there. Maybe there was people there, I don't know. The way she described it, he died poor and everything like that. But this is quite interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and find some of his stuff and listen to it, you know what I mean? Especially on a Sunday morning, you know, just to reminisce a little bit. I enjoyed this. I'll leave a link in the description to this video. I'll also leave other links here so that you could go there probably. Yep, there. So you could check out other reactions I did on Romanian stuff. And more Christmas carols coming. I have a whole lot of them saved there. So next week's going to be a lot of Christmas carols coming from Romania. And hey, you all take care of each other, all right? It's the season. Peace on earth, goodwill to men. Let's make it so this season. Cool runnings.